everybody, welcome back. My name is Allie, and today's program is really special because this is in honor of the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library finally reopening. I know that I am definitely not the only person who's excited about it, and as somebody who works there, I'm really thrilled to welcome people back in. It's been a joy to kind of see it from like my side of things, and it's going to be really cool to have people in the building again, as long as you're wearing masks. Okay, so today I wanted to do a program about the design principle that informs the building. So this is something that I was pretty new to. I am not from DC. I moved here from the Midwest. So this was something that was really interesting to me, that this building is informed by the Bauhaus design principle. So today's program is a little bit about Bauhaus in case you're like me and you weren't like informed about this beforehand, or if you want to learn a little bit more about this design principle and the guy who invented it, and do a program kind of associated with it too. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here is the beginning of my presentation. Yes, I am corny, so I called it Rock the Bauhaus. But yeah, in celebration of the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library's reopening, let's talk about the design principles that inform this building. So the biggest thing to know, of course, is that the design principle that informs this building is called Bauhaus, from the school of the same name. And the person who designed our building is Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, also known as Mies. So again, in case you're like me and you weren't sure what Bauhaus actually is, the main idea is that it's purpose and function over aesthetic. So I have a couple of pictures here to kind of show you what I mean. So if you're taking a look, you might be wondering what the picture on the left is. This thing is a coffee pot. So of course it doesn't really look like any coffee pot that we have seen before, and that's because it is purely focused on the use of simple shapes, clean lines, and sort of like basic materials. So this is communicated via every aspect of this coffee pot, right? So, there's only like sort of these half circle shapes throughout, except for the spout. And this is even reflected in like the stand for it here on the bottom. Looking at this, it's bare minimum. Like, it's exclusively what it is for. There is no decoration besides this. A similar kind of idea can be found over here in this bit of textile. So this was applied to textiles and clothing that sort of came out of the Bauhaus while it was operating. And again, here we see just very simple shapes, a limited palette. This really like informed almost every single aspect of the stuff that came out of the Bauhaus. Okay, so I wanted to include this too because this is a really neat example of sort of like the overall design principle as applied to print. So looking a little bit closely at the image too, you can see a little bit more information about the Bauhaus. Here we have the dates. So it only operated for like maybe about 15 years, right? Like it wasn't around for very long, but still the design principle and how it informed the construction of things is so striking that, we're still talking about it today. So, again, very limited color palette. Like, the text is not overly decorated here. We have the basics that we need in order to understand what's happening in this image. So a little bit more about Mies. He preferred to go by Mies, of course. Born in 1886 and died in 1969, he was the last head of the Bauhaus. So he emigrated to the U.S. 2 years before World War II because, unfortunately, when the Nazis were coming to power in Germany, they harassed his school in the couple of locations that it was last. He emigrated out of Germany to the US, and he landed as the head of the architecture school at the Illinois Institute of Technology. So, of course, if you grew up in or around Chicago, you are likely very familiar with his work because he designed a ton of buildings from his studio in Chicago for the rest of his life, including our own main library. next, we have a couple of examples of architecture. So these two are based in Illinois. The SR Crown Hall is actually a part of the Illinois Institute of Technology, and we have a personal home, the Farnsworth House in Illinois as well. So I'm hoping that you can kind of see the connections here, right? We have that same use of simple line, as few colors in the building exterior as possible. There's a lot of like metal and plate glass, you know, and in this we have sort of a very functional building, right? One more time, I wanted to point out that the really big takeaway from this design principle is function over aesthetic. So I thought that it was really funny that one of Mies's favorite aphorisms was less is more. So, you know, you can definitely get a sense of that when you're actually looking at MLK, the main library. This was sort of another element of the design, like, ideology behind the Bauhaus, is that you're not necessarily designing for the function, for the aesthetic of a thing, excuse me. You are more designing the experience. So if we think back to the half circle coffee pot earlier in the presentation, you know, the experience is to make it so that it's not too heavy to lift up and it's easy to get the coffee out of the pot. So with those other two buildings too, you know, you have a simple experience of looking at the building, seeing exactly what you're in for, and knowing fairly easily how to navigate it. The activity that I wanted to show you guys today was designed by the Goethe Institute when talking about the Bauhaus sort of design principles and the history of it. My favorite aspect of this was that we were trying to design a chair. But the thing is that we couldn't think of it like a chair. When I say the word chair, you're probably thinking of like your favorite chair at home, or maybe the chair you're sitting in right now, you know, something that it has sort of a pre-existing like function or form in your mind, right? So instead, this activity surrounds flipping that. So we have to think instead about designing for the function of sitting. So this isn't just, you know, sitting at home quietly in a chair. Think about instead designing the kind of sitting experience that you would like best. When we originally did this activity with the Goethe Institute in the public library, what I ended up designing was a sewing chair. So, you know, I thought about the things that would make me the most comfortable while I was sewing. So, you know, having a seat that was wide enough to have stuff next to me, or having something that would like support my legs or support like a sewing machine foot. You know, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this because instead of thinking about the aesthetic of this chair, I was thinking about the experience that I wanted to have in it, the function of it. Of course, I'm not asking you to actually build a chair using like wood or anything, you know, more complicated than a pair of scissors. So instead, here's some suggested materials. When we did this activity with the Goethe Institute, we used paper, pencils, pipe cleaners and straws. We had some scissors, we had tape, and you know, we had some good paper. So use these things to prototype a sitting experience. Don't think of it as a chair. Don't design a chair. Design a sit. Design the kind of sit that you would like. Okay? So these are just suggested things. Use what you've got around your house. These are a couple of examples too, just to kind of like help hopefully make this make more sense. So looking at these things, these are some chairs that came out of the Bauhaus. You know, again, not a whole lot of extraneous stuff here. These may not look necessarily the most comfortable, but maybe that wasn't a part of the original designer's intention, right? The functionality of these chairs was just to give the person a place to sit. You know, looking at this red one over on the left, this person's priorities in designing this chair were to have a place for their arms to rest and maybe to give a little more height to their knees, for example. You see how the back of the chair kind of dips a little bit lower than the front. So, you know, it's stuff like this that I want you to think about when you're thinking about your sit. Remember, because we're not designing a chair, we are designing a sit, a sitting experience. So, you know, looking at the one on the right-hand side, we still see some armrests, but we do have a little bit of cushion too. So the functionality of this chair is probably a little bit different from that red chair on the left, right? So the very last thing I want you guys to take note of is our email address, because if you come up with a sitting experience that's unique to you, We would really love to see it. Oh my gosh. So this is the email address for the labs at DCPL. If you come up with something, we would really love to see it. So please, please, please take pictures and send them to us.
Okay, so that was the presentation. I hope it made sense, but I just really wanted to talk about this really cool design, like principle system that really informs this building. So, like I said too, if you have pictures of your sit, I would really like to see these things. So please use the email address. I'll put it in the description below. And if you're so inclined, we in the labs would really love to see pictures of what you come up with. So yeah, thanks again for joining me today. Once again, we will really look forward to seeing you guys at MLK's reopening. But in the meantime, of course, there are other branch locations open. Please check out dclibrary.org/library-at-home too for other stuff like ebooks, audiobooks, games, puzzles, and a list of locations too that are open. So yeah, thank you very much once again, and I will see y'all next time.